Harry Potter, one of the biggest fantasy franchises in the world. Spanning 7 books and 8 subsequent movies, it's safe to say it would be hard to come by someone who has not at least heard the name Harry Potter. With the popularity of the series and the much anticipated Hogwarts Legacy game approaching, I deemed it would be the perfect time to take a look back at the famed series. We will be ranking and discussing each entry in tiers S to F, S being the highest and the lowest being Hell. I would like to preface quickly that I am not someone who has read the books, rather my perspective is solely based on the films alone and how they stand up in the world of cinema. As well, I won't be taking a look at the Fantastic Beasts movies, since I felt to maintain the excitement for the upcoming game, it would be most enjoyable if we just strictly kept it to the main 8 films of the franchise. Since that's now out of the way, we can get into the films. Good news is none of them landed in D or F tier, so we won't have to send anything to hell today. I found all of the movies to be at worst very enjoyable and fun still, so we're starting at C tier. The 5th installment of the franchise, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, is unsurprisingly placed last for me. It's amongst popular opinion that this is the worst or one of the worst of the franchise. In my post-watch research, I've seen that a lot of the hate towards this movie comes from the job they did adapting the book. With the book being the longest of the series and this film being one of the shortest of the movie series, they seem to have left a lot out. Although mentioned before, that doesn't go into my ranking since I have no knowledge of the books until I eventually do read them, I found as a film this was by far my least favorite. Being the 5th installment, now over halfway through the series, unfortunately this movie felt very uninspired compared to the others before it and after it. Not to say it's awful, it just felt the most generic as far as big blockbuster franchises in modern day standards. It was very entertaining though, and had a few moments that really stood out to me. I did enjoy the plot point of Harry becoming the defense against the Dark Arts Master, as it was very charming seeing everyone rally around Harry and learning from him. As well, we got by far the best action sequence in the whole franchise. The fight between Voldemort and Dumbledore was everything you could have wanted and more. Like, my god, the visual effects and the creativity was on point. I swear, nothing has got me more excited for the Hogwarts Legacy game than this goddamn scene right here. The parts that kinda dragged for me though involve the Ministry. The concept of Harry having to work against conspirators and neglectful members of the Ministry could be interesting. It definitely continues to build suspense for Voldemort as higher ups of the wizarding world choose to deny the claims of him returning, whether out of fear or ignorance. They neglectfully try to move past the problem as they don't want to alarm anyone. The issue I had though is just how unlikable everything became. The school gets taken over and it gets to a point where it's almost comical how radically strict the rules become. Umbridge being appointed head mistress and literally torturing students was kinda wild too. There's a point where she's literally sitting on a throne while she oversees an entire classroom of students torturing themselves. It does make for a satisfying conclusion later when the school is liberated, but for majority of the film it can get a little bleak at points. Also, I wanted to say, despite how unlikable Umbridge is, Imelda Staunton, the actress who played her, did a phenomenal job. She perfectly encapsulated that one teacher you always dreaded having in school.
Because you know, deep down, you deserve to be punished.
The other issue I had with the film was the Order of the Phoenix. An interesting concept again, I just didn't love how they presented it in the film. A lot of the parts with the Order just felt a bit lackluster or boring to me, and it leads up to this climax between the Order and the Death Eaters that felt almost a bit goofy in the scheme of things. It sorta reminded me of like a modern superhero film where everyone just shows up to this set piece out of nowhere for a big team-up action sequence. Again, not to say it was horrible, it just felt a bit out of place for how the series has gone so far. I did, however, very much like the new characters that were introduced, like Luna Lovegood and Bellatrix Lestrange, who were both very good in their roles. Despite it not being my favorite of the series, it continued to do a wonderful job of building this suspense for Voldemort and progressively raising the stakes. Overall, it still brought a lot of fun and charm we've been accustomed to, and even some standout moments in the franchise. It's the only film that lands in C tier for today, so let's move on to the B tier. From here on, all the movies mentioned are quite good, and it's basically up to personal preference. For me, we're starting at the bottom of B tier with Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This movie really puts the final two into perspective. We see a tonal shift more than ever before. A lot of the color and warmth of the world is beginning to fade as Voldemort's presence grows larger. I love the flashback sequences with Tom Riddle. They have an eerie vibe to them, as if we're watching the origins of evil itself.
And how does one stretch his soul, sir?
I think you already know the answer to that, Tom.
Murder.
Those type of scenes really make this series special, as we'll get more into it later, but the presence of Voldemort felt throughout the series is incredibly well realized. Knowing this is the last movie before the two-part finale made it so much more intense. Seeing things unfold and getting prepared for what's to come, the Horcruxes were such a cool concept. Narratively, it felt like the endgame to the story was just introduced, as we now knew what needed to be done in order for this great evil to be defeated. And then there was also plenty of somber moments to drive home the impact of this film. The one that stuck out to me was when Dumbledore and Harry venture to a cave to find another Horcrux, and it leads to this heartbreaking scene where Dumbledore is forced to drink this incredibly painful potion. It's prolonged, and this reaction Michael Gambon gives just tore me apart.
Please!
There was also, of course, the death of Albus Dumbledore, which was tragic and left the film with a defeated tone reminiscent of Infinity War. There weren't any major issues I had with the film. I mean, some of the dialogue was a little bit goofy and the pacing could feel dragged at times, but nothing that took anything major away from the film. There was a couple of weird moments throughout the film, like when Harry just randomly clapped Draco in a confrontation, but then he was saved by Snape and it was never talked about again. Maybe that's something the books go more in depth about, but here it's just kind of brushed over and like, what the hell? Through and through though, this film worked great as a setup for the finale, and it really got me excited for the war to come. Speaking of the finale, the next movie is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. An interesting movie because as a standalone film, I don't think it's anything special, but in the connection to the Harry Potter series, I think it's perfect. You really feel the weight of the war in this film. The toll it's taken on everyone, and the trio slowly gets put under more pressure as they're becoming isolated from everyone, really giving a sense of all or nothing. Ron was probably at his worst in this movie, although in the context of the film, it made sense from a writing standpoint. I get under the situational stress and also the fact that he had that Horcrux on, which takes a negative effect on its holder. He was still just very annoying though. And the fact he just straight up ditched the group in a dangerous time like this, it's just like, damn bro, you really being that petty?
Yeah, I'm still here. But you two carry on. Don't let me spoil the fun.
However, pushing him aside, there was a lot of good character moments too. Harry and Hermione's friendship was at its best here. Seeing them lean on each other for emotional support, trying to keep spirits high, it was great. I also really enjoyed the Deathly Hallows story. It was a mystical, interesting way to introduce such an important piece to the story this late. And I could just listen to Emma Watson read all day.
He then greeted death as an old friend, and went with him gladly, departing this life as equals.
Like I said though, as a standalone film, this was one of the weakest, and that's mainly due to the story being the most reliant on your investment in the series. There was also just really odd dialogue in the movie like this.
Right. Perspective.
And oh god, the forest chase scene? Don't even get me started, man. This shit moving at 1,000 miles a minute, it's nauseating, but it's also kinda dope at the same time. The performances from the cast were excellent, and the main trio really got a chance to shine on screen. Then to finish the movie on one of the strongest notes of the series, a major sense of dread leading into the next film. First, my dude Dobby gets clapped, RIP. That was really well done, and it got me emotional. And then to have Voldemort finish the film by grave robbing Dumbledore and acquiring the Elder Wand, he looks so powerful and terrifying, and really that's one of my biggest compliments I can give to the franchise. The fact that Voldemort has so little screen time leading up to the finale, but they managed to build him up as this next level threat of evil. Just from everyone else's reaction up to this point and the stories we've heard, the impact he's left on the world, That is how you set up a finale, and that's how you make a series great. The final two films in B tier go hand in hand and are almost equally as enjoyable for me, but we'll start here with Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the second entry into the franchise, and so it continues introducing us to this magical world full of new, interesting concepts. The film is incredibly charming with so many whimsical set pieces. As well, I really think this movie being released in 2002 helped it tremendously, and I think that goes for all the early entries into the series really. Everything feels so much more cozy and mystical due to not only the set design, but also that nostalgic look the early 2000s films give you. Take Hagrid's hut for example. This place immediately just looks so warm and inviting. Then with the nighttime aesthetic, with the forest backdrop, oh my lord, it's perfect. The young cast is also adorable and so incredibly charismatic. That's one of the first things I noticed when rewatching this series is just how good the trio are. Their facial acting especially is remarkably good for their age. You go watch any scene with them and at least one of them is giving very good reactionary acting.
Yes, well, that can sometimes happen.
And it stood out to me as a main point into why this series works so well, as everything from the first movie to the last revolves around those three. I think the plot is very captivating here. This film especially really started to get me attuned to what I'm in store for tonally as the series went on. To me, Harry Potter through and through is primarily not only a fantasy series, but a mystery series. You're supposed to question stuff and get entranced. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a world filled with witches, wizards, goblins, ghouls, potions, dark magic, and every other mystical thing you could imagine, so every film has some element of mystery to solve. This one more than any though, as the plot is centered around the Chamber of Secrets. It's almost presented as a murder mystery in some ways, with the creepy messages and whispers, and the stakes having students get petrified. I really appreciated the direction the movie went in. Not to mention, I'm also a really big fan of Tom Riddle as a character, and this movie is filled with tons of scenes and flashbacks involving him. It definitely adds to the ominous tones, especially in hindsight knowing who he really is. I think in a lot of aspects, this movie really improved from the first one. The thing that surprised me the most is just how much it improved on its visual effects. The Quidditch scene alone is baffling because it's actually good in this film, and it's not... well, actually, we'll get into the other Quidditch scenes soon. The basilisk was also very well done. For a giant CGI snake in the 2000s, I was impressed. And I'm sure that's to do with them using a mixture of practical and visual effects, but regardless, it was wonderful. How can I mention this movie without mentioning the GOAT as well? My guy Dobby, making his debut in impeccable fashion. Overall, love this movie. The Chamber of Secrets slapped, and I had a lot of nostalgia for it because I'm pretty sure I watched this the most out of the series growing up, and it definitely holds up well nowadays. The final entry into B tier is also the first entry into the franchise, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. As I mentioned before, this film goes hand in hand with the Chamber of Secrets, and I think they're perfect to watch back to back. A lot of my enjoyment in this film continued and was improved upon in the second, but I felt this one was just a little more special to me. There's something about the beginning of a franchise, the feeling you get from being introduced to everything, even if it's after countless times. It was damn near perfect the way everything was shown to us. Like damn, seeing Diagon Alley and going to Hogwarts for the first time, I've never wanted to be a wizard so bad. This nighttime boat shot presenting the students to the school is amazing. Hogwarts has never looked so cool within this one shot. You can imagine all the wonderful, magical things you might see within those walls. The characters are just fantastic. My boy Hagrid won my heart over from the moment I saw him. He feels like that cool uncle who lets you do stupid shit, but is also very caring. I mean, look at the cake he made Harry. It's so poorly made, but perfect at the same time.
Baked it myself, words and all.
Dumbledore as well feels the same way. The supporting cast introduced is fantastic, but of course the standouts are the trio. It was so interesting watching the 20th anniversary docu-series of the franchise and seeing how wild the casting of the characters were. The way it's talked about, it seems like all the kids were in love with the books, and this was like a dream come true to them. They were perfectly cast, and despite them being vaulted into this, which I'm sure was insane for them, they were excellent. From Ron and Harry gorging on all the candy from the trolley, to the funny moments with Hermione.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. She's a nightmare.
The seedlings for Voldemort started here as well, just placing the idea of this great evil looming in everyone's mind, as they dare not to speak his name. The only real knocks I could give this film were more of a product of the era. While I said before being made in the early 2000s benefited the aesthetic of the movie, it gave us one god-awful thing I will never be able to forget: the Quidditch scene.
Of a quaffle, Bletchley passes to Captain Marcus Flint.
It's still very cool, but that CGI was deplorable. There's also some odd dialogue here and there, which is to be expected, but nothing that hurts the overall enjoyment of the film. In my mind, an impeccable beginning to the franchise and a well-deserved spot at the top of B tier. Starting off A tier with Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. The most fun Harry Potter movie in my opinion, with non-stop entertainment. From my research, I've come to learn that in many people's regards, this is the worst book adaptation, and therefore the movie is not very popular among some, but as a film alone, I think there's a lot to love. I mean, sure, I think as far as characters go, this is my least favorite of the series. Particularly Ron stands out as a sore spot, and really throughout the series he does, but this comes across as one of his worst outings.
Ronald would like me to tell you that Seamus told him that Dean was told by Pavati that Hagrid's looking for you.
A lot of this movie, the trio is kind of disbanded. I mean, more than anything, this is a coming-of-age story for the group, and as they describe themselves, it's peak teenage hormones.
That film was probably peak hormone, at least for me.
Having crushes for the first time, asking someone to the date, to the Yule Ball.
There's a lot of hormones flying around.
But oh well though, because this is Harry's film. He is more like an anime protagonist than I have ever seen. The whole film is following Harry making his way through the dangerous Triwizard Tournament, which Harry was not supposed to be in the first place, since students 17 and under can't enter, and he never put his name in the Goblet of Fire. Either way, the boy balled out, and it was hype. It was so dope. He was like fighting a dragon, and he became a mermaid at one point. I mean, for him, he's outed for a decent amount of the movie since he's believed to have cheated or gone against the rules to enter the tournament, but that doesn't stop him from being on demon timing. He just kind of ignores everything, and his main character arc is, I don't care about all that, I'm just trying not to die. The new characters we get introduced to are okay. They don't hurt the film in any way, I just didn't find there to be any standout performances. There is Vamp Boy though, who I totally forgot was in this, and then I soon came to learn why child me forgot about him in the rest of the series. There's a lot of fun set pieces, and it's cool to see the world expanded more as they introduce other schools from different regions of Europe into the mix. The climax to the movie can sum up my love for the film, however, as it is fire. After all the spoken word and mystery surrounding the name, we finally see Voldemort in the flesh, and he is magnificent. Ralph Fiennes is remarkable in the role, bringing such a frightening, intimidating presence to the screen. Despite Voldemort being built like a 10-year-old boy, due to his performance and the work that's been put in building him up, he comes across as someone who should be feared. This is also the first time we feel real, legitimate danger for Harry, and this film is a foundation piece for the rest of the franchise. More great performances, including Cedric's dad, who really drives home the emotional weight to the end of the film.
This is my boy! My boy!
And we're left with a somber ending, which up to this point in the series hasn't been felt to this magnitude. We get to the top of A tier with Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. A lot of people's personal favorite in the series. I really enjoyed this one. It had everything I loved about Harry Potter. More mysteries, more time with the trio, more spooky fun, and more magic. The tone of this movie is my favorite of the series. Immediately you can tell this is going to be darker and more eerie while also keeping it lighthearted at times. It's the perfect balance for me. The idea of a sinister being on the loose in this setting is always a fun concept. In this case, it's escaped Azkaban inmate Sirius Black. We get shown the Dementors for the first time, who are very cool. All the light and warmth in the world getting sucked out by them, and that shot with them on the train and having Ron's hand stuck up on the glass while it turns icy cold, it is excellent. I didn't remember a lot from this movie going in, so it was all a pleasant surprise. That's absolutely the ideal way to watch this film if you haven't seen it, as there is multiple twists and turns. You really go on a journey trying to unravel all the narratives and lies. Of course, we see continual improvement on the best aspects from the previous films, the great aesthetic, heartwarming character moments, and an even better Quidditch scene. What makes this movie more enjoyable for me though, is that they take the great aspects of the first two, while also adding to it. Like the new characters. By far, two of my favorite characters in the series are introduced to us in this film. We get Lupin, who is by far the best new professor introduced, considering it feels like every film we meet a different professor. He just feels like someone who truly wants to see the best for his students, and he's also very endearing and caring towards their safety. Bro turns out to be a goddamn werewolf too, so hell yeah, dude. Sirius Black is the other character that is just a fantastic addition. Obviously, majority of the film he isn't present, rather just the presence of his name alone is haunting the school, but when we finally do see him, he is captivating.
I did my waiting! 12 years of it! In Azkaban!
Gary Oldman steals the spotlight, just incredible, and then it turns out he's actually innocent, and he becomes the literal cool uncle to Harry. Sad we never got to see them live together and bond, but the time we get with them is very heartwarming. There's a lot of cool moments here, like the whole time travel scene during the climax. It was very clever and well done, as well as the Patronus scene. Like, god damn, that was insane. Harry's just built different, man. And we got to see Buckbeak and get introduced to Hippogriffs, which was dope. That flying scene was magical and you instantly felt connected. But you can't forget about the night bus scene. The amount of drugs I felt like I was on watching this. I can't say I didn't enjoy it though. It was so goofy but so fun.
Little old lady at 12 o'clock!
This and Goblet of Fire were the two films I had the most fun with in the series. There's a lot to be enjoyed and taken away, however, there's one film that stands out as my personal favorite. I mean, come on, are we surprised? The finale of all finales, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Perfect. Just perfect. If I had to summarize this film in a few words, that would be it. But of course, we're gonna dive into this. All the stakes built over an 8-film franchise, culminating with a movie that felt like it could be written and dreamed of by fans. And that's not to say it's just a fan service movie, as there's lots of nuance and long-term storytelling unraveling, but they do such an excellent job to make it feel all worth it watching the rest of the franchise leading up to this. It feels like everyone comes back, and I mean everyone. All the impact and weight of the series can not only be accredited to the great job they did building up to this point over the last how many films, but also to the character writing. They have such a deep cast of characters built up over the past 7 films, people that we have gained sympathy for, have got connected to, or at least know on some level who they are as a person. So then to bring them all back, it makes the stakes feel that much bigger, like for all of these people to band together to fight this great evil, this is it. And also, it makes such an impact emotionally when they inevitably kill off some characters in the mix of battle. The scene going back to the hall after the first half of the war, seeing the bodies laid out and the people who did survive left to recover and grieve, it adds a much needed weight to make the climax feel special. All the characters, no matter the role leading up to this point, are given a role in the finale. Snape, after all the turmoil between him and Harry, is given such an important role to push Harry into the climax. It's beautifully done, and I just love Alan Rickman, so that part especially stood out to me. There's characters like everyone's favorite auntie, Professor McGonagall, who is totally badass here, man, and she just lays it all out there.
And his name is Voldemort. Phileas, you might as well use it. He's going to try to kill you either way.
Hell, even Neville gets a big character moment in this film, showcasing just why I love this series. Even someone like him, who has been played as a mostly jokey, sympathetic side character to this point, gets a big character arc culminating in a heroic speech. The other part I was extremely happy about is the screen time we get with Voldemort. I was dying to see him live up to the namesake on screen, and it was wonderful. Ralph Fiennes delivers a captivating, terrifying performance, showcasing a wide range of emotions. Not only do you feel the weight of the good side as they fight against this great evil, but you get to see the impact it takes on Voldemort as worry slowly starts to steep in each time one of the Horcruxes has been destroyed. That confident, untouchable, almost godlike figure of evil itself turns to someone real, as he realizes there's a real chance of losing, and for the first time in his life, a possibility he could die. The Battle of Hogwarts is incredible and everything I could have wanted, but the climax, oh my god, the climax, man. There's so many things going on in this, but at its core, it's a story between Harry Potter and Voldemort, good and evil. And Harry Potter is that dude. There was so many lasting moments from this film that really stick with you. One of them is the revelation that Harry was always meant to die. The acting from the trio is on point, and you could see the layers of emotion within them before Harry goes to meet Voldemort. Him using the Resurrection Stone to talk with all his family who has passed, them motivating him and being with him as he goes on this journey to death, and then after, talking to Dumbledore about life and getting left with yet another classic quote from Albus. Daniel Radcliffe delivers his best performance of the series, and you could honestly just feel how much this meant to him. All this talk about the build-up to the finale, it leads to two of the most memorable scenes in the whole franchise, at least for me. The now memed but chilling scene where Voldemort actually kills Harry Potter. That line delivery is insane. And then you have the other scene, which of course I'm sure you already know.
Harry Potter is dead!
That was perfect. The big duel between Harry and Voldemort is magical, and I just love that Harry calls Voldemort Tom. It's just very funny to me.
Come on, Tom. Let's finish this the way we started.
Together!
The film ends with a dusting that I feel tops Thanos, and we're left with the ultimate happy ending, showing the trio years into the future, now sending their kids off to Hogwarts for the first time. Honestly, flaws and all, it doesn't matter. I think as a finale to a franchise, it's perfect. In the end, this is all just my opinion, and one thing I love about the Harry Potter community is how much love there is. Everyone seems to have vastly different opinions and choices for their favorite in the series. It's all objective, but I'd love to hear your opinions and thoughts in the comments, or what your personal favorite movie is. I think as a whole, the Harry Potter franchise is excellent, and it holds a special place in my heart. It has such a nice balance of themes that can make it enjoyable for any age group. I mean, who doesn't love to get lost in a world and indulge in all these magical things, letting your imagination roam? I can't wait to dive into the book soon, but for now, this has been my deeper look at the films. Now that this is finished though, I'm gonna go spend the next few weeks of my life playing Hogwarts Legacy. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Peace.